Doc, can you please record the session? Thanks.
Yeah, I've got it for you. I've got it. Okay, so if we look at qualitative data analysis, so all the other detail will remain the same, guys. The key thing in terms of content analysis, and I would assume that we are going to do content analysis, is about making sure that you've done your transcripts. So when you do your interviews, the one thing that you have to do is that you have to record your interviews. So without doing the recording of your interviews, you won't have any basis to do your coding on. So the first thing you have to do is record your interviews. Please make sure that you record it. Please make sure that you keep the recording safe, that you keep it under password and those that we adhere to anonymities and those kind of guarantees that we give our students. Once you've recorded your interviews, you have to transcribe them. Please do not try and do your coding without transcribing them. Now, you might want to save money and save time if you're not great at typing. You might want to consider using Teams to do your interviews on. I don't want that. I would prefer if you do your interviews recorded and then retype your interviews yourself, to do the transcripts yourself. Key about doing data analysis in qualitative is that you have to be close to the data, is that you have to become part of the data, because the more au fait you become with the data, the more you live yourself into the data, the more likely it is that you are going to get a great set of results. Amber, are you quantitative or qualitative?
I'm qualitative.
Okay, then you're in the right space. So please make sure that you do your own transcripts. Please don't pay somebody to do your transcripts or get somebody else to do your typing, because the moment that happens, it means that you being distanced from your data, from your first order data. Also, please remember that you are only going to interview 3 people. In terms of the 3 people, if one of them turns out to be a dud, I'm quite happy for you to do a 4th person. Only if one of them turns out to be a dud. 3 people to be interviewed, and you'll remember in terms of the interviews, open-ended questions. One of the things that also you need to make sure of when you go and do your interviews is that you're quite comfortable with doing the interviews. So my suggestion is that you do some sort of practice interview with somebody that you are comfortable with. Even if the person doesn't know the subject well enough, remember we're using purposive sampling, so we're selecting people that know a lot about our research. But you have to go and practice initially, because part of what makes a qualitative interview successful is the fact that you get data-rich information, is that you get the person talking. Please make sure that you do very little talking, that the only thing you do is ask questions, and that you keep the conversation moving. Remember, you can also ask clarifying questions when somebody says something that you believe is valuable, but you need extra input on. You have to keep that interview flowing. To do any of the qualitative content analysis is you have to have your transcripts then done. The kinds of things that we do from a transcript analysis is you would start with your codes. Now, codes are words or labels that we use to essentially represent lines in a particular interview. So let's say my research is on the importance of listening during change management processes. And one of my interviewees, one of my research participants says to me, One of the best things I remember about the previous change effort is how my manager used to take time out of his day to spend with each of us. And we knew that when he stood with us, it was just our messages that mattered. I felt very important about that time because it was my time with this manager. There was real time spent with me. Now, that's a lot said, but you could reduce that to management being visible as a code, management showing interest employees as a code. You wouldn't have the whole discussion. And that's where you can only do that when you are really, really, really plugged into the data. So the interviews are important, the transcripts are important, but the transition from the transcripts to the codes can only happen when you truly, truly have immersed yourself in the transcripts. So that long story that I've shared about the manager listening and walking around could be translated into a 3-word code: management paying attention. That becomes your first code. So the coding process is a very personal one. I cannot do your coding for you. I cannot do your labeling for you because it's your choice. I can help with the coding. I'm obviously, it's not anything that I haven't done before, but I think the coding process is quite satisfying. So what will happen is, once you've done your interviews and you've done your transcripts, you will see there will be common things shared and said by your different participants. And when you take those common things, you'll see they'll fit into single codes. They'll come together in similar codes. So from there, we would have our codes. Many codes make fewer categories. So categories are summaries of codes. So we'll transition from our codes to our categories, and then we'll transition from our categories into our themes. Now, remember, if you are doing deductive qualitative research, you have already got an idea of your themes, but you are proving the themes. You are looking for information that matches your themes. Now, I know that some of you have decided to do the research inductively, where you are going to allow the themes to merge from your interviews and your transcripts, where others have decided to do deductive qualitative research, where you have already got your themes and you are going to try and match what comes out of the interviews with those themes. Either way, the coding from your transcripts to the codes to the categories remains the same process. Okay. Guys, and I think the key thing is about being part of that data. So here is a process. It's about preparing the data. It's about transcribing the data. It's about being close to the process. I'm not going to go through each of these slides. It is a description of a content analysis. I would rather show you how it works. And then we draw conclusions. Let me have this as an example. So if you read that discussion about an inner city neighborhood, I noticed the grand majority of homes have chain link fences in front of them. There are many, mostly German Shepherd dogs, with signs on fences that say, "Beware of the dog." For this person who was doing this research, for that, then the code was security. And it's quite easy to see that there is some key element of security in that discussion. One of the things that you have to do when you code is please try and make it as easy as possible for me to follow your leaps and assumptions. Because remember, there is a leap and assumption from that there to security. But it's not a leap that is so bizarre and so disconnected that it's not possible for me to follow. So these transitions need to make sense for somebody who's on the outside. So it's almost like leaving the breadcrumbs for me to follow. So those breadcrumbs need to be quite obvious. I need to be able to see how your codes transition to your categories, how extracts from and we'll talk about how you present your data, how extracts from your transcripts translate into your codes. So those transitions are important because you are making assumptions, but those leaps must leave enough breadcrumbs for me to follow when I mark them. So in terms of the other coding examples, there are some examples. From codes, we move to categories. So many codes make fewer categories. So in terms of categories, these would be families of codes. These would be combinations of codes that logically belong together. So categories present broader concepts that combine sets of codes. Okay. I'll show you guys better examples. And then this is an iterative process, guys. This is not a once-off process. It is a wrestling match. You will wrestle with this data. You will to and fro. And there will be moments where you believe you are the stupidest person to have ever walked this planet. Please don't think that you're the only person going through those self-doubt moments. Every single person that has ever done qualitative coding has felt exactly the same before. I did my PhD qualitatively, guys, and truthfully, I did manual coding. I didn't want to use software because I felt the software distanced myself from the interviews and the transcripts. I often thought that I had 4 brain cells and all but one of them had died as part of the coding processes. So please don't give up. This is supposed to be difficult, but it's that aha moment when everything comes together that makes it worth your while. And I'll be honest with you, you are going to doubt and self-doubt and get angry. At some point, you're going to blame me. You're going to blame the devil. You're going to blame your parents for making a stupid child. All of that is natural. Just don't give up, okay? And don't start drinking prematurely either. So believe me, this is a difficult process. The best thing, though, is when it all comes together. Now, I am quite happy to be a shoulder to cry on. What I am not going to be is your punching bag. So if you get the shits because you can't do it, please don't get hold of me and say, oh, Henny, it's your fault. You're not helping us. You're not guiding us. Because you could imagine what my response to that will be. Who can guess my response to that? The words I'll use is don't be a dumbass. Guys, you're going to struggle with this, but I don't want you to give up. It's a tough process, okay? So I'm not trying to put self-doubt into your mind. It is the reality of what happens during this kind of coding process. What I want to show you, though, guys, are examples of where this has worked. And I will share this with you. And it's well worth looking at. Amber, I get very nervous when you get very quiet. Amber, are you still here? I think Amber's going to get hold of me and say, I'm the dumbest person ever. I hate my parents for not giving me all their decent DNA. Is that what's going to happen, Amber?
I really hope not.
You know what's going to happen when you leave that message with me? Is I'm going to point and laugh at you. Because everyone has done that. Everyone's been there, okay? Everyone has been there. I just want to see which document I'm opening here. Guys, this is not the best subject matter in the world, but quickly have a glance at the relationship and the transition there from the codes to the categories to the themes. The one thing that I just also want to open another document while we're here. Okay, I want to just close, minimize that quickly. There it is. Just make sure it's the right one. Yeah. So if we look at this example that's on the screen there now.
Can you please zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, I am.
Thank you.
Okay, I will put these on for you. I'll make it bigger even. Not the best subject matter in the world, guys. Not the best subject matter in the world. But now you would imagine, on the basis of what we've already discussed, is your interviews would sit over here. I don't know if you can see my mouse flashing up and down. Your interviews would sit on the over here. Your transcripts would sit over here. Now, it obviously has to do with the use of contraceptives in women. I'm pretty sure that's what the subject matter is. Now, it is not the best subject matter, but it is some of the best coding that I have ever seen in my life. And what I like about it is that the leaps and assumptions are not so large that I cannot follow their logic. The breadcrumbs are very, very clearly there, from your codes to your categories to your themes. Have a quick look at the codes and how those translated to categories and how those categories translate to themes. Remember, many codes make fewer categories, many categories make fewer themes. Have a glance at that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So
Don't
when
ask me about using female contraception. I don't have answers.
I won't. So when we start the assignment for this section, we start with the
Yeah.
codes or the themes?
You start with your transcripts, and then you do your codes to your categories, to your themes. If you are doing deductively, have you decided to do deductively?
Yes.
I would simply do exactly the same form, but I would put my themes in there from the theories, and then I would have my codes, and then I would link from there. Because remember, your themes here had guided the questions you ask.
Yes.
You ask, and then I would do my codes and my categories, and I will sort it in line with the themes that are there.
Okay.
Okay. If you're doing inductively, you're working all in that direction. If you're doing deductively, I would put those down and then I would work from there in that direction. Okay, but it is a hell of a good question. It is a hell of a valid question. Okay, so you just need to check whether you're inductive or deductive as well. Okay. Does that make sense as a transition process and as a coding to categories to themes process? There are no leaps in assumptions. The breadcrumbs are obvious. Any comments about that one? Don't comment about the subject matter, okay? Not the greatest subject matter. Guys, and then just other examples, and I will share all of these. Let me enlarge these as well. So you can see here codes to subcategories to categories. We don't need subcategories. There's no single one. I quite like this one as well. Really, really, really nice transitions to your themes. Others here as well. So here they've already, almost part of your transcripts, started putting those together. I'll share both of these right now. And then once you've done all of that, oh my gosh, what have I done? Sorry, I've just closed the slides. Sorry, guys. And once you've done that, you would go and just present as you've seen in the examples. And then it's the analysis and the discussion. So it is then to look at the previous examples that I've given. But the only way you can get to that is this coding process. And unfortunately, we cannot do anything until such time that you've done your research. Amber, did you make sure that you attached all the correct forms?
I just need to upload them again because I didn't actually fill them out the last time.
Okay, get that done before Thursday morning. Okay?
Yeah.
It's not there Thursday morning. I can't present your stuff. And I'm not going to check. I'm literally opening it during the meeting. Okay.
Where do I hand it in?
I'll just upload it onto VC Learn under Task 2 as additional uploads.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'll do that.
I'll take it from there. Make sure that they spot on, please, Amber.
Yeah.
We can't mess around because the longer you delay, it means I've got to set up more meetings. It's going to become very, very, very difficult to get all your research and your analysis done. Okay.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, guys. Yeah, I want to go in, Jim. Any questions? Any comments? Other concerns that you might have?
Sorry. On my assignment, I had a few issues, right?
Yeah.
And I heard you state earlier that would I be able to fix those issues in part 3, or do I have to rectify those issues out before?
Now remember, part 3 is a presentation on your findings. So if we look at the submission for part 3, it is the presentation on your findings. So you'll only be able to fix it in part 4. Isn't that right, guys?
Right.
Yes, it is.
So you can only fix it in part 4. But there's nothing preventing you, Boya, to almost save that document as part 4 now and start blending in part 1 and 2 with all the corrections and start working on part 4, and obviously not including the research bits. And I think everyone should do that, because I can promise you the wave is going to hit us seriously when we get to part 4. So I would be
I
fixing
think.
part 1 and 2.
Sorry.
Yeah, go.
I
Go.
think we only have part 1, part 2, and part 3, and then our final submission. I don't think there is a part 4.
Yeah, I'm saying start putting the final submission together.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
So for the only thing we must share now is the documents. That's it. I mustn't, when I upload it, I mustn't upload the whole assignment together.
No, don't do that, Boya. No, I don't need to see corrected stuff. The only time we will now, I will get a chance to, please don't overload me with other stuff, where only the attachments. Don't make any other corrections until your last submission.
And we're submitting it on the same place where we submitted part 2. We're just submitting as adding on, eh?
Adding on the forms, yeah. Whatever adjustments you need to make. I thought all your forms were perfect, Boya.
It was only my gatekeeper's letter that's not signed.
Okay, go get it signed. Well, yeah. Just upload it as a separate one on part 2. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, sir.
Okay, yeah. So I can't remember, guys. I lecture so many of these that honestly, I rely on you guys to tell me what is what in what. I look at it when I get there. So part 3 is the presentation. So you'll, whatever corrections you do now is already working on part 4. Okay. So it's essentially your corrections that you start making on part 1 and 2 will be accommodated in part 4.
And
So
then
I would
will
start with my
all the editing that you made on our papers in part 1, 2, and 3, we'll be able to see that while we hand in our final assignment.
It's all there. It's all in. Yeah, it's all in the VC Learn.
Okay, so it's
I
not
don't
gonna
make
like
editing.
go away.
I make.
Okay.
No, it won't go away. I believe there was something wrong with VC Learn where all the recordings disappeared. But
yes.
Nothing surprises me anymore. I hate. Sorry, I'm being recorded today, guys. Yeah, so you can already see what you need to put into your final document. It's there. So whatever corrections, just start with your next one and copy across, save as your part 3, your part 2 as your part 4, and just plug in the extra stuff. Okay. I wouldn't leave this till later, hey? I wouldn't leave this till later.